Hi guys, welcome back. Um, so here we're going to go through this interview. I I got it all listed here, so we might as well go through. There was a lot of stuff said by Forrest, and as we spoke about before, Forrest had the ability to talk right past us. Like his usage of English, sometimes we didn't understand what he was actually saying to us. He would spin words and use wordplay in such a way that at the moment when you hear it, you might not understand it, or even when you read it until maybe we spotted what he was saying a few times and realize how he spoke and begin to understand the reason that it was for an English major, the reason that you had to go back in and understand it, and also, ladies and gentlemen, it's also the reason you can't say this was a fraud. This is also it's a declaration of Forrest's willingness to provide information. Every time he got in front of the camera or a chance to speak, he would give people information and try to make it easier. So let's go over some of this. Now, this is probably one of his last interviews. I won't tell you it's his last, but it is one of the last interviews before the chase was over, before the June 6th. So here, we'll start here. It says, I recently have been going through Forrest interviews trying to catch what I think is important in them. First, I chose the cowzars interview from 11/4/2019. And I really didn't hear much until around the 50-minute mark. But here's a list and time reference of what I heard. At 52:33, he says he want to meet the finder when it's found to discuss it. Adding that it could be very abstract if you're not careful. What gets abstract? I mean, a lot of things, I suppose, could get abstract, but generally the word is associated with art. The art wall, the trove. Art becomes abstract. I only wish I got to discuss it with him more. Now, at 53 minutes, he says about the title being the most important. Carl Summers, as we found out, swore that he was there with Jack Stoof, who provided photoshopped images. He also swore that there was a title to the chest given to Jack by Forrest, but at the sale of the chest, they were only offered a bill of sale. So when the chest was sold, there was only a bill of sale attached to it. There was no title attached to it. We can go back and understand that Carl Summers wasn't in that room with Jack Stoof and Forrest because Jack Stoof wasn't in that room with Forrest. Now, of all the photoshopped images, I've never found anything wrong with the pictures of Forrest Fenn in the treasure chest. Those are actual photos, unless somebody can prove to me otherwise. There is nothing wrong with Forrest Fenn's photos. Only when other people claim to be with him, like they have in the past, over and over and over again. His email is full of people that say they found a treasure chest. Even Jack Stoof has talked and met Forrest. I mean, we think about met somebody. If I email Forrest, when I emailed him and he emailed me back, I had met that man. We have communicated, you know what I mean? I might not have physically met him, but I know him now. He knows me. So how could we assume that a man that says a man from back east who I did not know and had never met could be a man that was exchanging emails with Forrest Fenn, knew him so personally that he would slip up where he wanted to die when we all knew Forrest wanted to die at the treasure chest? Questions we've all asked for 4 years. They shouldn't be questions anymore. I'd hope you all just go through, and after I'm done, you can do your own research and see what you see, because it's there. It's all over. Every time the man spoke, he told you about how it was going to go. He just needed some answers, that's all. A little bit of reconstruction and confirmation bias. So, with that title being the most important, Let me add, the title is after you're in the woods, brave and in the wood. He adds there's a lot of subtitle S's to that. Now, do you know where there's any subtitle S's at? Besides subsections in court? Forrest made statements like there's a lot of land laws and he'd like to maybe change some of them, you know what I mean? Or things to that nature, like there were ways around things. That's why he spoke to his lawyer. But subtitle S's, there's only one place you get that, and that's court. So we go for fraud and we say, but it had to go to court. It had to be proven. Somebody had to come out like I am today and explain it all in such a way that there was no doubt. Like just like Forrest said, you know what I mean? You need to understand the poem better than anybody else. You need to be able to do a great deal better than anybody else before you bring it your own improvement. So in order for me to be right, I have to prove to all of you that there was an embedded photo, that there was a second riddle, and everything we know is false. So 5820, it says, after reciting the poem about things are never what they seem, he refers to himself as nothing more than an interested observer at this point. I don't really know what that means. Does that mean the finder already solved it and it hasn't been declared found? Does that mean he hadn't pushed the right spot on the page? Is it evolving? Is it starting back up? I mean, we know Forrest said the man walked away in 2018. Well, the truth be told, people, I went to work. I didn't obsess over the hunt. I was at Folsom Falls the vast majority of my time at the hunt because I ran to no man's land and I found merit to the map, but I couldn't make it all line up. I never understood the riddle, so I went all the way back around the world, around the Rocky Mountains. Might as well have been the world, right? There's a lot of places in the Rocky Mountains for warm water salt, but so I needed a waterfall, so that limited it. I needed a brown. I ended up in Treasure Falls, Brown Ranch, 2013, too old or too new. You know what I mean? There was always one thing, because regardless of what anybody said, there was rules to this whole thing. So there was always one thing that brought me back or made me go somewhere else. So I kept searching and searching. I never forgot what I learned, but it was an information rabbit hole. I didn't have enough information, just like Forrest said, you can't answer that because you don't have enough information. One day I watched his interview, and I think it was a Taos bookstore, but it was a bookstore interview, and he's telling us Wild and Isolated was he wanted to describe the place. And he looks around that room and he got a smile on his face and he says, well, it's wild. And then he looks up in the air, and now I had watched this interview 5, 10, 15, 20 times, I never saw it. I looked right past it just like everybody else. But he said wild, and he looked up in the air and he said, let me think of the definition. Let me think of the definition. That was the very first time I caught him talking past somebody, because he looked in the air and said it. And he said isolated. Now when I caught that, I went all the way back around the Rocky Mountains looking for it. And it was 2020. The COVID pandemic started. I quit my job. They call it the exponential curve on March 21st. My father's got on oxygen 24 hours a day, so I'm going to keep him safe. So that made me get back to the hunt. But so the first thing I needed to do, I needed a fresh start. I needed to catch something. I needed a break. So I went back and I found that break. When I saw that, I went all the way back over the Rocky Mountains. Everywhere I've been, I couldn't tell you now, but anything that says brown on it, I've been there. You know what I mean? We got brown parks and brown ranches and brown mountains and brown peaks, and you know what I mean? There's so many browns. But I always wanted a brown ranch. That's what I was my goal was. But I was okay with any brown, a waterfall, and a warm water salt. And I was set on warm water salt. It had to be either the fishing dividing line, or I also use for Treasure Falls. I use the Continental Divide because at that moment the water divides itself in such a way that it could be considered warm water salt. I needed a line in it, and I also needed to halt all over the Rocky Mountains. So the Continental Divide also halted all over. You know what I mean? Like those are things like I led myself by rules, and I never purchased a book. I never read the blogs. I read interviews and statements from Forrest Fenn. I did not let people's ideas come into play when I went looking. I wouldn't let anybody else decide for me where it was because Forrest told us the blogs don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. If they knew, they would go get it, right? I mean, he told us over and over. But so I go all the way back around the Rocky Mountain. I've been at Folsom Falls probably. I'll say I've researched off and off for 4, 5, 6 years. You know, I know everything. I know about McNeese Crossing and Du Bois, and know about old George McJunkin finding the Folsom, the bison, and it's distant now because I've been going through a lot. But there's a lot of things. You know, the old town of Madison. Everybody wants to talk about the Madison River. Yeah, well, I guess it is if you consider the old town of Madison, the old silver mine that shut down, or talk about 9 Mile Hole, but Forrest said it's 8.25 miles from north of Santa Fe. And it is, it's north of Santa Fe. And if I make a horseshoe draw a straight line, and I drive from the gate at Folsom Falls Ranch, and I don't take the road, but I take a straight line to Folsom Falls, it's exactly 8.25 miles. It's 8.25 miles north of Santa Fe. You know, but took me a while as far as I get back, and I start looking, and Crumpo, Doug Scott has photographs of Folsom Falls, and he labels them Crumpo Falls. Now it's not Crumpo Falls, not to my knowledge, or the spring in the middle may be Crumpo. To my knowledge, Crumpo Falls is quite a ways back in the middle of the canyons there. So why it's labeled Crumpo, I wouldn't be sure. But I googled definition of Crumpo when you know it was wild and isolated. And that was my confirmation bias. When I understood that, I was able to go back, and in a matter of, we're talking March, and by June I had it. By the end of May, I was able to. I was so sure with that confirmation bias that I was able to dissect the poem and understand what I missed. You know what I mean? When I read Dry Cimarron River is also known as the Disappearing River for its notable feature of sinking and rising again further on. Sinking and rising again further on. The end is ever drawing nigh. It was the making the lines cross. It was the riddle. It was the information. It was the always I don't have enough information, but I started to get some of that information, and the more I got, the more confident I got. So I was able to see it and find it. Like it wasn't. I knew it was there. I was so sure it was there. It had to be there. So I was able to make sense of it because I didn't have any doubt no more. No matter how long I had been there was always that doubt at play. So you weren't able to make sense of it. You weren't so sure that you could understand it, go back through and find it because you knew it was there. It's like anything else. If you know it's there, you're gonna find it. You know what I mean? If you don't know it's there, you might walk right past it 1,000 times. So but yeah, so I knew. And the last one, I mean, Married to the Map. I always knew Married to the Map was the scenic Cimarron Byway. You know what I mean? The dry Cimarron scenic byway. I've known that from whenever, because you married to the map. You know what I mean? Take it in, turn on the wedding cake butte. It's old route for honeymooners. But now I've known that the whole time, but I stared at that map. It was the last one, and I saw scenic. And I heard take it in. And I understood what I was to take in the canyon down. The view. So we're going to go keep on reading this. I can't stop, I guess. So at 1 minute 42, he says, "Get back in the box," and we've already went over that. Get back in the box. The only box we have is the phone. You know what I mean? He tells you your thoughts flow more comfortable. It's the only way for information. He told you if you don't know where warm water salts, stay on Lake Canasta. But in reality, you can't know exactly where warm water salt because warm water salt all over the Rocky Mountains. You can't figure it out unless you have all the clues. He told you let the clues take you. You can't understand it without information. People wanted to walk out in the woods and find it. If you listen to the Lorraine Mills 2013 interview, you'll hear Forrest Fenn tell you that boots on the ground is a byproduct on the chase. It's a byproduct. It is not a necessity of the chase. It is a byproduct. "102.13. He won't answer the question where he's asked how exact a spot the clues lead. Forrest Fenn never answered how exact of a spot the clues lead, because he would have told you that you were able to find it online. He couldn't tell you if they were exactly to that spot. But he told you, like, if you were looking at the blaze, the answer would be definitive. If you look at my blaze, there's a 10 by 10 by 5 inch hole underneath it. The answer's there for itself. If you're looking at it, you would know. There's a way of knowing. He is just not telling. Now, we live in an information age. A lot of us might not understand things like data mining or the ability for a web page to track the user or a photograph to be embedded with a geotag, or, well, all photographs are embedded with geotags, but there's names for them. I'm not sure, but they become embedded. You can get information from somebody from clicking something. Sangreas.com and Legends of the West are where the vast majority of the information was located. So, but there was things out there. I didn't put out the warm water salt. That is public knowledge. That is something that's been on Reddit since I started this hunt. That was one of the very first things that I got and said, well, there's a good answer there. Hunter Brown Ranch has had thousands of people come past it. It's not anything new, but you can't just stumble on it. That's what Forrest Fenn told us. He said you can't find it on spring break or a picnic. You can't just stumble on it. It wasn't there to be found. It was, you had to let the clues lead you to it, and you wouldn't see it if you weren't looking for it. I didn't see it until I took pictures of the wall and come home. I was actually taking pictures of the waterfall. I saw it when I come home. I zoomed into the pictures to what I thought was a bell shape and found everything else inside. No, I wasn't looking at it. I was looking in the water because somebody led me to believe that it may be under a bank. There's a way of knowing. He's just not telling. Forrest Fenn data mine the chase. My page on Facebook is called The Truth of Forrest Fenn and the Dancing Dance. Now, we've heard those words used by Forrest. He actually said that Peggy was watching Dancing with the Stars, right? Dancing means the real McCoy, as well as Gadance. In that same comment, he said if Peggy was watching Dancing with the Stars, he wondered who won. And then he said Edward Haley later moved to Gadance. He became the real McCoy, you know what I mean? So my webpage is actually, if you were to translate it, called Forrest Fenn and the Real McCoy. So therefore I use that for my channel. I figure it was more understandable and we can get into that. But a lot of the words I'm using are Forrest's own words because I can't prove anything with my own words. A lot of people have already tried. They'll talk for hours. I won't listen to them. I refuse to listen to somebody lie to me for hours. I know most of you feel the same way. So, at 104:19, says the one most important thing, and Forrest said he's saving that for the finder. He also says what starts it's getting in your car and going to warm water salt. But what is it, you might wonder? The one most important thing Forrest says he's saving for the finder. Why is it I must go? The second riddle. The key word that would have helped us all. Go. If we all knew that go didn't happen until after the chest, we could have all located the chest online. Forrest used to tell us that. He would tell you, like, there's one thing you're overlooking. There's something you're overlooking. Like, if you had that, you would have already solved it. It was the fact that the halfway point, that it didn't end at the chest, and that the chest was found online. And for legal reasons, even, you guys, if Forrest talked to a lawyer, this is something that was discussed in depth. So we're going to go into the law of it. Now, Forrest wasn't liable for some of the deaths that occurred because of how they occurred. They, you know what I mean? He said, don't go nowhere an 80-year-old man can't go, and well, they did, you know what I mean? Or they made choices of their own. And that's not saying they made choices any of us wouldn't have made, but that stopped the liability of Forrest Fenn. He was no longer liable because people made their own choices, and he did try, whether he tried enough or not, to keep people out of those situations. It's just money will make people do funny things. We know what money does to people. So, but in reality, and legally, let's take a hypothetical question. Me and you. I go out west. I'm looking for the treasure. You're a stranger. You're looking for the treasure too. You want to go look for the treasure? So we go look for the treasure, right? You know what I mean? That's how it happened, right? Everybody did it like that. Everybody joined up. They went to Fenn, they hung out. They had some drinks. They met friends. People got married. But we're strangers. And there's $1 million chest. A 1 to 3 and possibly $10 million in gold sitting in the middle of a forest in the Rocky Mountains. So, me and you go, right? Where are we going? Well, let's go to Folsom. I think it's in Folsom. We get out there. No shit, it's right there. We found it. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine me coming out and hanging out with you? We go down there. We find that damn chest. Everybody wanted to find that chest. We all wanted to pick up a chest full of gold and stick it on our lap. So how we found it? I'm gonna pick it up, alright? It's my idea to come down. I put it on my lap. I opened the lid. I ain't never seen such a thing. I don't see nothing else. Everything in the box is just glittering and gold. You pull out a gun, blow my brains out, and take that chest. No, that was graphic, I know. That was the reality of a happening and a liability if a man stuck a treasure in the wilderness and dared people to find it, worth between $1 and $10 million. It was inevitable that somebody would die because they would trust a stranger, they'd be having fun. And some people don't think that way because what did we just say? We said money makes people do funny things. It was against the law for Forrest Fenn to leave a treasure chest out in the woods. But in 2009, if there's data mining and you figure out a new way and Doug comes in and the treasure chest is gone and Forrest got rid of it, then it's okay. See, because if Forrest hides something online and gives you every available avenue to find it, And he can't tell you. I mean, what would be the sense in a man telling you? We would all found it. He didn't tell me. I'm still struggling with it, and I did find it. Um, so, but if he only sends one man to the trove, if he hides it in an embedded image, and he doesn't promise he says a chest. There's no treasure chest there. There's no treasure. There's no jewels, no gold. He says a chest online. And after you go and find the trove, and only after you go, because he told you, he said it starts when you get in your car and you drive to warm water salt. Well, what starts, Forrest, man? Starts moving. Started before that, but it starts to thrill the chase. Because when you go, just like every one of you did, and you stick your boots on the ground, you've made a physical investment and a belief in yourself. And now you are blazing your own trail. So it began when I got in my car to go. Alright, so at 1:10:31, he says, "What's next?" He's not ready to announce it. What's next? That's what he was asked on 11/4/2019, and he says he's not ready to announce it. He says he posted, at 1:12:51, he says he posted close down Montana, Wyoming, and northern Colorado, but they don't care. You're telling me in 2019, and even previous to that, I believe, the only meme was a statement made. Forrest Fenn told him to close down Montana. He narrowed the search radius so people would no longer die falling off cliffs or go out into extreme weather or suffer the consequence of being in the wrong area where things could happen. And maybe, even though things can happen in southern Colorado and in northern New Mexico, maybe at least he limited the area. He was trying to limit the hunt for us. He was trying to get it done because that's what everybody kept urging him to do. And Forrest, whether he didn't have remorse of hiding a treasure chest, but he had remorse for the lives that were lost, just like we all did. Nobody wanted anybody to lose their life while they were out enjoying the best time of their life and trying to achieve the ultimate goal. Nobody wanted that. Neither did Forrest. So yeah, I mean, he hadn't been there since 1950. Now he tells you, he said close it down, but he did tell us. He said it was found in Wyoming. Now that's a statement for another podcast or another episode. But we'll dive into it real quick. So what's the definition of Wyoming? We know it's been written for an English major, and now we went through several definitions. The definition of Wyoming is large prairie place. That's what the definition is. The Santa Fe Trail, as the settlers came through, the grass was so tall at times that they would use compasses to navigate through it. If you drive down from Raton and you get on the dry Cimarron Scenic Byway, you will be in a place that you can define as Wyoming. You will witness a large prairie place. You will also witness why Forrest called it my Yellowstone. It's herds of animals. They're all on the side of the road. They're everywhere. It's a beautiful place. I also wrote Forrest on June 13th or July 13th. Hey, I gave him my reply on 6/30/2020, but on July 13th we hadn't had no news, so I wrote him back, and you can go back and read all that, but in the gist of it, at the end, I made a joke with him because he didn't, the finder didn't want to answer, you know what I mean? And I still hadn't given up. I know that what I researched, I was so confident when I researched that I know I have an answer. It's not, I mean, it's not a delusional answer. It's the answer that needs to be. I've thought about this, so, but anyway, so he gets into it, and, I lost my train of thought for a second. Oh, well, why help me? But anyway, so at the bottom of my email that day, I told him, I said, if it's your permission you need to tell, you have it 100%. Uh, and then I said, thanks, your wishful finder. You know, I think the same one I told him about how I hope he just likes surprises. And then shortly after, it was a 2 or 3 day occurrence, and had been from most of my emails. Most of my emails, as I was emailing Forrest, who was changing his words in his interviews slightly, but they kept changing as it went. But like I said, just a couple days after I told him it was my, if he needed my permission, then he disclosed it was in Wyoming, and that just settled things for some people. And it also, me and Forrest talked about the, in that same email, about the solve. And I told him you gave plenty of time on the blogs. You know what I mean? Like, the solve can prove anything wrong at this point. And I knew that because I knew how much information the solve actually had. I didn't understand how much information Forrest had put out as far as confirmation bias to that solve. But I knew how much information was there and how straight line it was in compared to everything else that I was hearing. So there is that. As far as, like I said, it's you know, I was still certain when I told Forrest this, and he knew every bit of it. It just, as time went on, I went back into the scheme of life, and then come back for a couple years is all. So we're gonna go the keyword. He talks about it at 113:14, and the keyword to me is go. Why is it I must go? He would tell you if he understood things, like, you would have probably already found it. You know, I mean, if you understood that you were going to find it with information online, and then and only then, like, that would give you a beginning, because he already told us warm water salt was the beginning of the riddle. The 9 clues that lead to the chest. He didn't say the entire poem. He said the 9 clues that lead to the chest. So if you understood that warm water salt was there, and you saw the word go, then you would instantly know exactly what 9 clues led to that chest. You would have no more, you wouldn't have to insinuate which one was a clue and which one wasn't. And I kind of just let the clues lead themselves there. So when I came across it, I knew where they ended and where they began. I didn't have to go looking for a wood, because I knew the chest was before the wood, or the hole was before the wood, at least. I did go looking for wood. I went down the Santa Fe Trail, and I believe it was 2017. Forrest one comment, he made a comment about, get out of the rut. That was his word. Get out of the rut. Well, let me tell you, people, the only thing that's left of the Santa Fe Trail is a rut. And if you walk from Folsom Falls, you could sit at Folsom Falls and look at the Santa Fe Trail coming over the hill, and behind you it walks away. But there's some remnants that have wood in them, and postmarkers and things of the such, to mark the way of what's left. And I had been in the rut. I was looking for the wood. See, I didn't understand where it ended, because I didn't make all the lines cross, so I couldn't just end it by finding the blaze. And the blaze was one of the very first things I found. It's not, you know what I mean? I went to Folsom Falls, I saw it, I looked at the blaze. But I can't make it all match, and it didn't matter, because I couldn't stumble upon it, and I couldn't find it on spring break or a picnic, and I had to make all the lines match. I had to answer all the clues to figure out the riddle. And that's the way it ended up happening. At 13:57, he says, what's your question? Twice I've caught him giving hints to the second question in the poem. And at 1:14:11, he says, you have to get all the clues right. You have to get all the clues right. Alright, guys, I'm going to end this episode, because it's getting pretty lengthy, and that was a good cover of at least what was said. and how it came out, and maybe give you a reference to go back and further see what you can say, have Forrest say. I would love to see what you guys find, any information you find. Please let me know. I'm not so much for a case anymore. I have enough to prove everything. I just love to dissect what Forrest did say. We all deserve justice and we all deserve truth. It wasn't a fraud. Forrest doesn't deserve people thinking it was. And of all the people, he built a community for you. He gave you a treasure hunt. He gave you something nobody in the world's ever going to give you again, regardless of how many of these fraudsters come out and say it. The man gave you, some of us, a reason to live. He gave us excitement in our lives. He for the first time in a long time, I just wanted information. I love going after information. I spent hours and hours and hours on SingGrace.com. I spent hours and hours and hours on Legends of America. I know stuff I would never know, you know what I mean? And all of it was nice to learn along the way. If you ever want to take a trip down the dry Cimarron Scenic Byway, you might find some wild donkeys still hanging out. You may find a lot of things associated with Forrest Fenn and the thrill of the chase, because everything between Forrest Fenn and the thrill of the chase, almost everything, associates back to that area. Have a wonderful night, everybody. I hope you enjoy. I'll be back. Thank you.